and I'm going to quickly run through a couple things around why people look at open compute and who sells it within India here. So there's a couple things happening in the market itself. There is one that's a shift on the software side. In the past, people have been using primarily legacy-based type of software applications. As people move toward a new type of cloud-enabled technology, they're running a lot more things on the other side there. Kubernetes, OpenStack, Ansible. Almost every customer that we speak to that's looking at open compute hardware is looking at new types of software to run on that hardware. That's not to say that they're still not using traditional software, but for the most part, people are more interested in the other side. I'll give you a couple of examples. AT&T in America, they're getting ready to replace a lot of their current infrastructure with open designs. So they're going to be replacing proprietary routers from Cisco with open source and open boxes. And even more so, they're not only replacing them, but they're going to be using this type of hardware, and then they're going to open source those specifications and then return it back into the community. And they're very, very active within OCP, and they're very active within other open technology groups. It's happening in the rest of Asia as well. Every country that I have down here is looking or has implemented a POC or deploying open compute gear, and that includes Cambodia at the very end. There's a company, there's an ISP in Phnom Penh that's running open networking. The reason? They actually find it to be 15 to 20% less expensive than a traditional Cisco or Juniper box. A really good example of this is what's happening in Japan. So Yahoo started about 3 years ago on their open compute effort. And right now, 26% of their estate is running OCP. And they have a lot of hard metrics on the benefits of open compute and what it's actually meant from a CapEx and an OpEx. And all of this is online as well. If you type in Yahoo Open Compute into YouTube, you'll get several of their presentations. OCP in the enterprise. There are several companies around Europe that are using open compute in the early stages, but there are two that I wanted to call out. One is ING. This is their subsidiary in Poland that has built their entire private cloud using open compute technology. And you'll see some of the numbers there on the reduction of TCO. Booking has just started moving away from proprietary hardware into open technologies. And they've run specific tests on OCP versus open compute and finding out that it's 40% less energy needed. There are really two main reasons that I come across that people are looking at open compute besides the move on the software. So software is really number one. They like using new hardware for this cloud-enabled technology. The second one is energy efficient. So across the board, we see varying energy efficiency. SK Telecom in Korea, they did benchmarking. It's 50% more efficient at idle for a server, for an open compute server, than a traditional HP or Dell server. Booking, energy efficiency again. So that's the second reason. And the third is around the OpEx. As you saw the previous slide around Yahoo, the ability to service open compute hardware is quite easy compared to others. This right here, Innova, is a gaming company out of Russia, replacing Cisco, Juniper, and F5, moving over to EdgeCore, which is one of our hardware providers for open networking. Anybody from EdgeCore here? Okay. And you can see the CapEx savings there. That study is online as well. So who sells OCP solutions in India, and where can I see them? There's a couple here. One is the compute and storage. Alfred, Mytech. All right, so how many people have heard of Mytech, this company? Okay, you have? Yep, a few people. All right. They're in a manufacturer based in Taiwan, and they probably have been the most aggressive at designing open compute hardware in the last year of any of our members. And they actually have facilities here and the ability to deliver open compute servers in country, and you've seen an example right back there of one of them. Open networking switches. This is our biggest area where we actually have a lot of supply chain happening within India. Mellanox, raise your hand again. Those guys, talk to them about open networking switches. EdgeCore, we already talked about, and Delta, right here. So these folks make, right there, you saw the hands? Two gentlemen here from Open Networking on the Delta side, and they make some great open networking switches as well. And the component providers. You saw Western Digital, Intel, two of our bigger contributors when it comes to the actual components within open compute. So there's a lot of supply happening within India that you may not have been aware of. The data center market. So now that I've bought the hardware, how do I deal with putting it in my facility? Because is it any different? What does it take, and what's actually happening within the data center market? So there's a couple things. NTT, they're expanding. You've seen the STT media, their numbers. They said that there's a CAGR of, in India of over 25%. And then lastly, the most interesting comment is from IDC around integrating the technologies using existing data centers into the new types of technologies. And so I thought it'd be better, instead of me talking about the facilities, I want to introduce Alan Richardson. Alan? Great. Come on up here, Alan. So Alan has been a big proponent of open compute technologies over the years, and he has operations based here in India, and I want to have him share a little bit more about what he does and what he's seeing actually in the data center market. The bottom arrow moves you down.
Okay. Thank you. It's great to be here. We are new to India, but we are a global company based in Kent, Washington state. But we have global facilities all around the world where we're supporting a lot of the large cloud providers. So we're involved in their data centers, and our real aim is how do we help them facilitate their structured cabling? How do we make it work? Because in many cases, you know, we concentrate on the network, we concentrate on the layout of the data center, the power consumption, all these things. But we are the people that actually join it all together. We're actually I like to call us, we're the plumbers within the data center, yeah? Because without us, nothing happens. So fiber is the key ingredient in the whole data center business. So we're involved, and we've learned an awful lot about dealing with customers' issues in how do they deploy large-scale data centers, how do they, when they start, look at how do they actually build out a scalable network, because that's what a lot of our industry is about now in the data center. It's about how do you scale quickly? How do we manage this huge load of data that we're involved with? So we concentrate on helping people, and of course, a lot of people are looking at open compute devices, switches, etc. And we basically work with a lot of those partners in how to provide customers, the end users, with that right solution. Okay? So we're a little bit different because we are very much a customer-focused organization. We're very responsive. We're very innovative because we look at the customer's requirements, what do they really need, and we deliver. And more important, we're scalable. And please understand, the fiber explosion, you may not, it's early days in India, but around the world, it is phenomenal in what's happening within the data center. Yeah, with some of the large data centers we work with, you know, we're dealing with fiber counts excess over 135,000 fibers. Yeah, fibers between campuses, between the data centers. You know, we're looking at 6,912 fibers going between buildings. And this brings a real challenge. How do you distribute fiber? How do you handle that? So it's a very exciting time, and I'm looking forward to India, how India develops, as we've been here for a year now, and we start to get to know people, we start to work with the data centers here, start to understand the challenges, and there are many, as probably you know as well. But we're here very committed to help develop that next generation of fiber infrastructure that will enable India to grow as it really goes down this path of digitization. I think it's a very exciting time to be here. First, we have a stand at the back, and this gives you an idea of our scalability around the world, where we're operating. We manufacture all our own products. We are able to support customers across the world. And at the moment, we have a facility here in Bangalore. And we are actually starting manufacturing here in India as well. So we are very dedicated to build this business in India. I've also taken the opportunity to help introduce OCP into India. I became a sponsor of that because I knew the importance. So with the help of Flipkart, it's been hopefully a very fruitful relationship in bringing this together. I think that's me. Okay, thank you guys.
Thank you. And if you have any questions about how Open Compute works within a data center, please talk to Alan and his group. Go back and talk to them. And Alan was really instrumental in kicking off the idea for OCP within India and talking to the folks at Flipkart. So he's been a pretty big champion down here. If you get a chance, when you go to opencompute.org, you can actually click on Marketplace, and you'll see a list of all the Open Compute products. You can filter by the brands that Archana had mentioned earlier and by solution provider. So who's looking at OCP in India? One of the reasons we started to think about an event here is we can take a look at our website traffic. And we've done absolutely nothing down here in the past. And yet you continually rank in the top 5 visitors to our website. And you continually, not only in the top 5 to the general website, but in our marketplace, you're in the top 5 looking at our products. And we've never done anything down here. Not one press release, not one webinar, nothing. So it's been pretty interesting for us to figure out, well, what are you guys actually looking at and why does it matter? So here's what you're looking at. You're actually looking at that sled, that compute sled back there. That's the number 1 product, compute. That's the number 1 server looked at in India right now, and you can go back and take a look at it in more detail back on the table from the folks at MyTech. On the networking side, you're looking at an edge core switch. Now we have 3 primary edge core switches. We have a 10 gig, 40 gig, and 100 gig on the website, along with Delta switches and along with Mellanox as well. But out of those 3, you think you guys are looking at 10, 40, or 100? How many people in here think you're looking at 100 gig? All right. How many people 40? And 10? How many people ready for the tea break? All right, good, all right, good. 10. That's the number 1 switch looked at within India. What do you think it is in China? It's 100. What do you think it is in America? 40. Pretty interesting. So we'll continue to track this, but the important thing to note is not what you guys are actually, what model you're looking at, but the fact that you're visiting quite a bit. So there is an interest in open hardware. So I'll leave you with a couple points. One is there is a move to open hardware. Whether or not it's extensive at this particular time, or maybe it's just one component, but people are absolutely moving this direction. India has OCP hardware. It took Yahoo 3 years to get to 25% of their estate. And it's taken other companies about a year to get a POC going, another year to figure out whether or not this is working, and then they start to deploy at scale after about 24 to 36 months. The important thing is you start now, get a server in, start testing your workloads. So you can actually get networking switches and hardware right here, right now. The last comment is from my colleague who always says, whatever market open source enters, it eventually dominates. Whatever Linux entered, it dominates. And we're finding the same thing in the hardware side with the momentum. If you look at the manufacturing numbers of what open hardware is doing and the trajectory, it will soon dominate, hopefully within a few years. Lastly, I'll reiterate the link that Archon had mentioned. Please join the mailing list. Let's figure out what is most valuable to the team here. And that's it.